Welcome back. This video is called manipulating elements. So as usual, let's start with our own folder. So this is number 2, manipulating elements. Okay, and then let's open this up. And then let's get started with its own title and an empty script tag. So this time manipulating elements, then just clear all this up. I'm going to start with our blank index page. So we know from the last video how to access elements. So now let's take a look at how we can change these elements using JavaScript. So let's create a level 1 heading as an example, and let's give it a ID of title, and then some text between the level 1 heading of changing HTML elements. Okay, so we've looked at manipulating a value by using the inner HTML. So that was document.getElementById, and then we know we need to grab the ID of the element we want to change, which is title, and then we've used inner HTML to change the contents of the element to anything that we want to. So we can put any text in there that we want. So as well as the inner HTML, we can also change the CSS or the styles of a particular element, and we do that with .style. And then once we've selected the style, we can go further into the CSS by using the dot, and you can see using brackets that as soon as we use a dot, we then get a list of all the available CSS properties that we can select. So I'm going to get started by selecting the color, and then color, we're going to set that equal to, I'm just going to start with red. So let's now open this up in the browser and take a look. So we've got the level 1 heading of changing HTML elements, and then we're adding a CSS style, and then we're setting the color of the text to be red. So let's open that up. So now we've got the text all red on the page there, and we can add many different CSS properties on there. We can change the font size, and let's make this text really big so we can check it's working, something like 100 pixels. So we'll have a little play around with that and try and select some of the different CSS values and see what you can achieve with that. But I'm now going to move on to getting and setting the class names or the IDs of HTML elements. So let's start with getting the class name or the ID. So to do this, we need to add a class to our level 1 heading. So let's just add a class of red, and then we can find out what this class name of this particular element is. So let's select the document.getElementById. So let's select the title ID, and then .class name with the semicolon at the end. So because we're grabbing a class name, I'm going to store this inside a variable so we can access it easily. So variable of class name is equal to document.getElementById. So we're grabbing the title, and then we're selecting the class name. Let's now do a document write, and then check we've got the class name correctly stored inside the variable. So let's just put this inside the brackets and then refresh. So we can just about see that we've got the class name of red appearing at the bottom. This also works with ID. So you just need to change class name to .id, and then just display the results once again inside a variable. So ID name, save that. And we've got the ID set to title in this case. So that's how we can grab or how we can get the class name or the ID of an element. Sometimes we want to add an ID or add a class or even an additional class to an element. So let's take a look at how we can add classes and elements. So I'm going to add some styles and create a few new classes that we can add to this element. So let's use our red class. So let's set the color to be red, and to make it a bit more readable, we'll set the font size to 2 M's. And then let's also create a second class of blue. And then we can add this to our element. And change the color to blue. And then let's add an additional ID that we can add to element 2. So ID 1. So I'm just going to set the font family to be fantasy. Okay, so below we got the ID and also the class of the particular element. But if we want to set the ID, we just simply use the .id and then set that equal to the ID name that we want to add. So in our case, it's ID1. And if this is added correctly, we should now get the font family changed to fantasy. So save that, and then head over to the browser and refresh. There we go, great. So we've got the different font family. So the ID has been added to the element. And adding a class works in exactly the same way. So let's just duplicate this line. And then we'll set the class name. So grab the element by ID of title. And then dot class name. And then instead of the red class, let's add the class of blue that we created. And then save that. And let's get rid of the ID name. So save that and then refresh. And now we'll get the blue color. So that's all working correctly. Okay, so now we know how to add IDs and classes to elements. We also know how to access the particular class or ID. Next, I'm going to show you how to create and to add new elements to a page. So let's start with a blank script tag. And I'm going to store these in variables. So I'm going to create a variable called a new element. And the new element we want to create is going to be equal to document dot create element. And then inside the brackets, we need to put the name of the element that we want to create. So I'm going to create a new div. So this will create a new div and store it inside the variable called new element. Inside this div, I want to create some text to put inside there. So let's create a new variable called add text. And the way we can add text to a div or to a document is by using document dot create text node, and then inside the brackets we'll put inside the string that we want to create. So new text string. Okay, so we've got our text and we've also got our new div. So to add the text to the div, we select the new element variable, which is the div, and then dot append child. And the child which we want to append or add to is the add text variable. So just put that inside the brackets. Okay, so now we've added the new text to the new div. Let's now add this to the document. So document.body dot, and I'm going to use insert before. And in here we tell the browser exactly where we'd like the content to be added. So insert before takes 2 parameters. So the first one is required, and this is the content or the object that we want to add. So we want to add the new element variable that we just created. So that goes in first. The second value is optional, and this is the marker in the HTML where the new element will be added just before. So if we wanted to add new element to just before our level 1 heading, let's create a new variable called new content. And then let's set new content to be equal to this heading at the top. So document dot get element by ID, and we want to grab the ID of title. So just put that in between the brackets, just like that, and we just want to make sure that that's a variable. Okay, so there's a bit going on there, so we'll just take a little look at this again. So we're creating a new element or a new div. We're then adding a new text string to that div using append child. So now we've got this information stored in a variable called new element. We'll then add this to the document using insert before. So the section of code we want to add is this new element, which contains the new div and the new text string. And then the second value of new content is where we want to add this new element to. And we want to add it just before our level 1 heading. And then go over to the browser and refresh. So there we go. So there's our new text string. So if we wanted to give that particular div an ID, you can do that with new element, or the new element variable .id. And like we used in the last example, I'm going to set the ID to be equal to anything you want. So I'm going to set mine to my ID, and then save that. And now when we refresh the page, if we go into the developer tools, and then if we select the new text string, you can see that inside the body we've got a new div with an ID of my div, and the content is new text string. So that's how you can add a new element to HTML by using JavaScript. So thanks for watching, and in the next video we'll move on to a mini challenge, which is create a temperature converter, and it will put into practice what you've learned over the last few videos. Okay, so thank you, and we'll see you in the next video.